I sat on a massive rock, staring blankly at the sea of clouds rolling beneath the cliffs of Qingmu Peak. I was miserable. 3 days ago, my soul had crossed over from Earth, taking over the body of a cultivator who had died from a botched meditation session. He had my name, Sun E, and now I had his memories. At first, I was thrilled. A cultivation world? I expected to be the protagonist. I wanted the top-tier spiritual roots, the god-level techniques, and the power to crush my enemies. Reality gave me a sharp slap to the face instead. I spent 3 days researching my new life, and honestly, I was an embarrassment to all transmigrators. I didn't have a superpowered system. I didn't have a legendary spiritual root. I didn't have a magical artifact to grow spirit herbs or a powerful family backing me up. My body was as ordinary as it got. In this world, talent was all about the quality of your spiritual roots, not the quantity. Lower-grade roots were considered trash. They were slow to cultivate, and the chance of reaching the foundation establishment stage was almost zero. Most sects wouldn't even look at a disciple with lower-grade roots. The Qingyun sect had recently suffered a disaster and was desperate for workers, which was the only reason I was here. I had 3 spiritual roots, gold, wood, and fire, but they were all bottom tier. Between the lack of resources and the grueling daily labor I was forced to do, I had no time to practice. I was 21 years old and only at the 3rd level of qi refining. It was pathetic. Even among the servant disciples, I was the bottom of the barrel. I was just a tool to be exploited, no different from the 996 office workers back on Earth. If I stayed like this, I would eventually just fade away and die of old age. But this world was cruel. Low-level cultivators were worth less than dogs. The idea of living a quiet life until old age was a pipe dream. I couldn't just accept this fate. I was a modern man. I survived decades of mortgages and a crashing stock market back home. I could handle a little trouble. I needed to change my life, but how? Leaving the sect was out of the question. Luanyao County was crawling with demons and rogue cultivators. A level 3 weakling like me wouldn't last a mile outside the gates. I wasn't the kind of protagonist who could just stumble over a treasure in the woods. I only had one life, and I couldn't afford to be reckless. That meant I had to find a way to rise within the sect. I had no talent, no skills, and no background. But I had knowledge that these cultivators couldn't even imagine. I thought about introducing finance, or maybe new communication technology. But as a lowly servant, I had no materials and no protection. If I invented something amazing, someone would just kill me and steal it. I needed a plan that was simple but effective. Then, a memory clicked. There were forbidden zones like the Wanyao Forest and the endless ice field where a cultivator's divine sense was useless. Even powerful experts were blind in there, making those places death traps. But those areas were also full of rare resources. If I could build a radar system to replace divine sense, I could navigate those zones safely. I could detect monsters, find hidden ores, and spot treasures from a distance. Back on Earth, I was a researcher who had specialized in radar technology. I was also a master at DIY projects. The conditions in this world were actually better for building things than on Earth, provided I had the right materials and a skilled blacksmith. If I could combine my knowledge with their magic, I could change everything. But I was still just a servant. I needed a way to build this without it being stolen. I needed a backer. I was deep in thought when 3 loud bells rang out from the main peak. The sound echoed through the entire Qingyun sect, signaling a major event. I didn't think it had anything to do with a nobody like me, so I stayed put. A while later, a voice shouted my name, breaking my concentration. "Old son, you're hiding here slacking off again." I looked up to see a thin young man in a tattered servant's robe running toward me. It was Ergo Z. He looked frantic. "I've been looking for you everywhere," he panted. "Hurry up and come with me." "Didn't I already finish my work for the day?" I asked, looking at Ergo Z's frantic face. Ergo Z was a servant disciple just like me. We both had mediocre talent. We were both stuck at the 3rd level of the qi refining stage, and we both managed the pharmacy at Qingmu Peak. Because we were in the same miserable boat, we were close friends. "Stop talking and move." Ergo Z snapped, grabbing my arm and pulling me along. "If we're late, Manager Wong is going to lose his mind." "What's the rush?" I asked, stumbling behind him. "You heard the bells from the main peak, right?" Ergo Z panted as he dragged me. I'm not deaf, I replied. But what does that have to do with us servants? Ergozi leaned in. Manager Wang said the ancestor is coming out of seclusion in 3 days. He's going to pick a new sect leader for our Qingyan sect. All servants have to clean the entire sect top to bottom to prepare. I froze. A new sect leader? I remembered now. In the 20 years since the Qingyun sect fled to the myriad demon county, we hadn't had a leader. Our only nascent soul ancestor had been in seclusion to heal from old wounds, leaving 5 golden core elders in charge. If Ergozi hadn't mentioned it, I would have completely forgotten. I wonder who he'll pick, Ergozi sighed as we walked. The 5 elders are all staring at that throne. Whoever gets it will soar to the heavens in a single bound. I'm so jealous. His words hit me like a lightning bolt. I stopped dead in my tracks and slapped my forehead. That's it, I shouted. If I can get close to that nascent soul ancestor and become the sect leader, I'll be the one soaring to the heavens. Who has a bigger influence in this sect than him? If I became the sect leader, I wouldn't have to worry about materials for my radar. I wouldn't have to worry about someone stealing my research. I'd have the best cultivation methods, the best resources, and all the beautiful girls. Wait, no? I'm a gentleman. Ergozi turned around and looked at me like I was a complete idiot. What did you just say? You, the sect leader? I nodded seriously. Why not? Think about it. If I get the position, I'll have everything. And hey, when one man rises, his followers rise too. If I'm the boss, you're moving up with me. Ergozi stepped forward and smacked me upside the head. Ow, what was it for? I rubbed my head, glaring at him. I'm knocking some sense into you, he rolled his eyes. Stop daydreaming. Look at yourself. You're a level 3 chi refining ant. You think you can compete with Golden Core Elders? You're looking for a death wish. There isn't a single sect in the world led by someone as weak as you, let alone a servant. I touched my face, looking thoughtful. I heard the ancestor is a decent, upright man. He wouldn't just kill someone for no reason, right? Being the leader is his decision alone. The key is the ancestor himself. I looked Ergozi in the eye. Let me tell you something. If everyone thinks a plan is possible, don't do it. That's a lesson from the stock market. Be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. Who says a chi refiner can't be a leader? I'm not going in without a plan. If there's even a 1 in 1,000 chance, it's worth a shot. Stock market? What are you talking about? Ergozi looked like he wanted to hit me again, but gave up. He figured I was just talking nonsense. Just shut up and hurry. If Manager Wang waits any longer, we're dead. And don't repeat that sect leader, talk to anyone else, or I won't be able to save you. I chased after him with a grin. A man needs dreams, Ergozi. Otherwise, what's the difference between me and a salted fish? If the ancestor is reasonable, I just need to figure out what he needs and satisfy his interests. Even if I fail, he probably won't kill me. I just need a solid plan first. Learn the difference between a dream and a delusion. Ergozi scoffed without looking back. Don't get me treated like a fool just by standing next to you. You won't even get a chance to see the ancestor. I just smiled. Before today, I felt like my life in this world was a dead end. But now, I decided to go big. I needed to investigate the ancestor's personality and the temperaments of the 5 elders. If the opportunity arose in 3 days, I was going to apply for the job. No risk, no reward. Investigating their public reputations shouldn't be hard. The ancestor was the key. If he was the type to kill people on a whim or search souls, I dropped the idea instantly. I wanted a promotion, not a funeral. And so, I began drafting the most insane plan in the history of the cultivation world. A level 3 chi refining servant applying for sect leader. People would call me crazy, but they didn't understand the wisdom of a modern man. 3 days later, as the sun began to rise, I stood outside the main peak hall. I was acting as a hall guard. I had traded my tattered clothes for a clean servant's robe, and I looked sharp. I had run through my plan hundreds of times. It was risky, but I was sure it could work. Normally, this guard duty belonged to 2 outer disciples. I had to spend a massive amount of money to bribe one of them to let me take his spot. This was my only chance to get close to the ancestor. I told the disciple I just wanted to show my face to the higher-ups. To pay for the bribe, I had spent every cent I owned and borrowed heavily from everyone I knew. I had just escaped debt by crossing over to this world, and here I was, a wanted debtor once again. The last 2 days were a blur of sleepless nights and relentless work. I used snacks and small bribes like a master key, unlocking the lips of the older sect members to dig up every piece of dirt I could find. It turned out the Qingyun sect was rotting from the inside. Corruption was everywhere, and problems were piled as high as mountains. For a few spirit stones, people were willing to spill the most scandalous secrets. I focused my investigation on the nascent soul ancestor and the 5 golden core elders. I mapped out their backgrounds, their connections, their past experiences, and their temperaments. Since this wasn't classified information, it was relatively easy to gather, but it cost me almost every spirit stone I had left. The news about the ancestor, Qing Xian, was a relief. He was a rare breed in the cultivation world, an upright man. He wasn't a cold-blooded killer and didn't slaughter the innocent on a whim. He had been raised by the Qingyun sect since he was a child and felt a deep, bone-deep loyalty to the place. That was why the sect had been entrusted to him. The 5 elders were all at the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. Elder Jin Zhu ran the Hall of Law. He was impulsive and had no filter. Elder Qin Chu handled internal affairs. He was meticulous and loved to calculate. Elder Li Tai managed external affairs. He was a smooth talker, a real social butterfly. Elder Han Yun was in charge of the Hall of Missions. He was steady but barely spoke. Finally, there was Elder Yi Luo of the Servant Hall. He kept a low profile and knew the ins and outs of manual labor. I spent hours drafting strategies and simulating every possible reaction. I decided to treat the sect like a modern corporation. Back on Earth, I wasn't an executive. I was just a young researcher, but I'd seen enough to know how a business should run. The Qingyun sect was stagnant and lifeless. A simple change in the system could breathe life back into it. My secret weapon was the detection radar plan I had in mind, though that would take time and the sect's full resources to build. My biggest fear, having my soul searched, was also put to rest. My research revealed that cultivators in this world avoided soul searching because it made breaking through to the next realm nearly impossible. That gave me the confidence I needed. A fellow outer disciple arrived at the hall shortly after me. He looked at me, standing guard at the left side of the gate, and frowned. "Who are you? Where's Chu Yun?" I gave him a polite smile. Senior brother Chu Yun had some business today. He asked me to take his shift. The disciple scanned me, saw I was just a level 3 Qi refining servant, and lost interest. He didn't care enough to argue. Soon, streaks of light cut through the sky. One by one, powerful figures descended. A crushing pressure slammed into me, making my body feel like it was buried under a massive boulder. The Golden Core elders had arrived. I quickly lowered my head, playing dead. They didn't even glance at me as they walked past, cold snorting at one another before entering the hall. The tension between them was thick enough to cut with a knife. A moment later, a truly terrifying aura dropped from the heavens. The air around me froze. Before I could even blink, a figure blurred past and vanished into the hall. I didn't even see his face. When the pressure finally lifted, I let out a jagged breath. My heart was thumping against my ribs like a trapped bird. That was the power of a nascent soul cultivator. My back was soaked in cold sweat. For a second, I hesitated. But then I clenched my fists. "Screw it," I whispered to myself. The bigger the storm, the more expensive the fish. High risk, high reward. Inside the hall, Ancestor Qing Xian took the high seat. The 5 elders stood and bowed deeply. "Greetings, Ancestor." Qing Xian looked grim. He waved a hand. "Sit. I've been in seclusion for 20 years, and the sect's decline ends today. We must choose a new sect leader. I will give the position to whoever can actually grow this sect." The elders tried to hide it, but I could feel their excitement. Elder Jin Zhu stepped forward first. "Master, I am willing to shoulder this burden. I will make us strong." Elder Qin Chu wasn't far behind. "Master knows my capabilities. Give me a chance to prove myself, and I will lead us back to the peak." Then Li Tai jumped in. "The previous sect leader trained me specifically for this. I am the right choice." Han Yun and Yi Luo joined the fray, each claiming they were the best fit. Qing Xian looked troubled. They were all roughly equal in power, and each had their own merits and flaws. Picking one would be a nightmare, especially in a dangerous place like the wild Demon County. Outside, I took a deep breath. It was time. "Gods of China, protect me," I muttered. I turned and started walking toward the entrance. "What do you think you're doing?" the other guard hissed, blocking my path. I looked at him and grinned. "I have urgent business with the ancestor." Before he could react, I brushed past him and stepped into the hall. This was it. One step toward heaven, or one step into the abyss. 6 pairs of powerful eyes snapped toward me. I finally saw the ancestor. He was a majestic, middle-aged man with graying temples and a face that commanded respect. He must have been a real heartthrob in his youth. I walked forward, my heart screaming in terror even though my face remained calm. I bowed deeply. "Disciple Sun E greets the ancestor and the 5 elders." The silence was deafening. Elder Jean Ju's brow furrowed. He was annoyed that such an important meeting was being interrupted by a servant. "What is it? Speak." They all assumed I had some world-shaking report to deliver. Even the ancestor looked curious. I looked up, meeting their gaze. Before I speak, I asked the ancestor to guarantee my personal safety. I cupped my hands toward Ancestor Qing Xian, waiting for his word. He looked at me with a calm, steady gaze. "Speak your mind," he said. "With me here, no one can harm you." I smiled inwardly. That was exactly what I needed to hear. "You said it, old man," I thought. "If these elders try to crush me in a second, you better step in." I cleared my throat and stood tall. "I am aware that the ancestor intends to appoint a new sect leader today. This is a heavy responsibility. Therefore, I wish to nominate myself for the position. I want to share the ancestor's burden, grow our sect, and lead us back to our former glory." The silence that followed was absolute. All 6 masters stared at me like I had grown a second head. A lowly servant at the 3rd level of Qi refining was actually asking to lead the Qing Yin sect. It was unheard of. In the entire history of the cultivation world, a move like this was a first. Elder Jinju was the first to snap. He roared in fury, his voice shaking the hall. "You insolent brat! How dare you cause trouble here? You must be tired of living. A mere ant at the 3rd level thinks he can covet the throne? You're looking for death." Elder Qin Chu let out a cold snort of disgust. Even the ancestor frowned. To him, I was a speck of dust. The idea of me applying for the job was absurd. The pressure in the room began to rise, heavy enough to crush my bones. I felt the killing intent radiating from the elders. I quickly bowed again, pushing through the suffocating weight. "Ancestor, you are wise and peerless. Please, just let me finish. If you think I am wrong after I speak, you can kill me or hang me as you please. I only ask for a chance to be heard." Ancestor Qing Xian looked at me with a flicker of genuine interest. My flattery about him being wise and peerless clearly hit the mark. He had lived for hundreds of years and had never seen a kid with this much nerve. Since he hadn't picked a winner yet, he figured there was no harm in listening. He waved a hand, instantly silencing the elders who were stepping forward to strike me. "Quiet," he commanded. "Let him speak." The pressure vanished. I took a secret breath of relief. My life was safe, for now. Walking this tightrope was exhilarating. "Thank you, ancestor," I said. I knew I had to move fast. My plan had 3 steps. First, get the ancestor's attention. Second, drop a bombshell to disqualify the 5 elders. Third, present my master plan for the sect. I turned toward the 5 seated elders. "Before I continue," I said, "I ask for the elders' forgiveness, as my next words may be quite disrespectful." I looked directly at Elder Jinju. In my opinion, while some people have high cultivation, they are completely unfit to manage a sect. Jinju's eyes bulged. "Bastard, why are you looking at me? You think I'm unfit?" I shook my head and waved my hands dismissively. No, Elder Jinju. I'm not just talking about you. I'm saying that none of the 5 of you are fit to be the sect leader. If any of you take charge, this sect will never grow. You dare insult us," they shouted in unison. If the ancestor wasn't sitting right there, they would have torn me limb from limb. I felt their murderous glares, but I couldn't back down now. I had to go all in. I had to grab the ancestor's leg and hold on for dear life. I took a deep breath, ready for the storm. It was time to start the verbal massacre. I turned my focus back to Jinju. "Elder Jinju, let's start with you. Not only are you unfit to be the sect leader, but you've been a total failure as the head of the Hall of Justice." Jinju laughed, a cold, angry sound. "A brat at the 3rd level dares to judge me? I've served as the head for 20 years. I've worked tirelessly. How am I a failure? Give me a reason that makes sense, or I will turn your bones to ash. The ancestor leaned forward, curious to see how a servant would challenge a golden core master. I knew the ancestor wouldn't let me die while I was still talking. I was safe as long as I was interesting. Elder Jinju, I asked, what is the core principle of the Hall of Justice? Fairness and justice, obviously, he snorted. Exactly, I countered. Fairness, justice, and transparency. But have you upheld them? I'm questioning you right now. When was the last time you actually visited the hall? Your 3 disciples use your name to bully others. They take bribes and extort the outer disciples. Do you just choose not to see it? Lies. You're framing me. Jinju lunged at me, his hand raised to strike. Suddenly, a massive aura slammed down on him, pinning him to his seat. He couldn't move a finger. My heart skipped a beat. Cultivation was a dangerous business. Thank God for the ancestor. Ancestor Qing Xian looked at me seriously. Do you know the consequences of framing an elder? I do, I said, pulling out a jade slip I had prepared. I hadn't spent my spirit stones for nothing over the last few days. I haven't framed him. This slip contains records of their crimes. It's common knowledge among the disciples. If you don't believe me, call the victims here yourself. The ancestor flicked his wrist, and the jade slip flew into his hand. He read it in seconds. His face darkened. Humph, Jinju, look at this yourself, the ancestor growled, throwing the slip at him. I had no idea you had turned the Hall of Justice into such a stagnant mess. He glared at the elder with pure disappointment. I knew I had him. 1 down, 4 to go. I tossed the jade slip to Elder Jinju. He scrambled to catch it, his eyes scanning the contents with frantic speed. In an instant, his face turned deathly pale. He slumped in his seat, looking like a man who had lost his soul. I hadn't lied about him. He hadn't stepped foot in the Hall of Justice for a long time, leaving everything to his disciples. I watched him with a calm expression. If a man couldn't even manage his own department, he certainly wasn't fit to lead the entire Qingyun sect. The other 4 Golden Core elders watched Jinju's collapse with hidden glee. They saw Ancestor Qing Xian's cold expression and felt their own chances of becoming the new sect leader rising. They thought they were winning. I turned my gaze toward Elder Qin Chu. Elder Qin Chu, I said, my voice echoing in the silent hall. As the head of the Internal Affairs Hall, you control the distribution of sect resources. It's a massive responsibility. Yet, you let your 2 disciples run the place like their own private kingdom. They withhold resources and extort the others. The disciples are full of resentment. The Internal Affairs Hall is a mess of corruption. And you think you should be the leader? Nonsense, Qin Shu roared, pointing a shaking finger at me. My disciples are hardworking and loyal. They would never steal resources. I didn't waste words. I pulled out another jade slip and held it up respectfully. A second later, it vanished from my hand and reappeared in the ancestor's grip. This slip contained names, real names of disciples who had been cheated, and the exact dates it happened. A simple investigation would prove everything. Humph, Qin Shu, look at what you've done, Ancestor Qing Xian growled. The disappointment in his voice was heavy. He threw the slip at Qin Shu's feet. The ancestor knew I wouldn't dare lie to him in this room. Qin Shu looked at the records, his face draining of color until he went silent. I didn't stop. I turned to Elder Li Tai of the External Affairs Hall. The smug look had vanished from his face. As our eyes met, I could see the panic in his soul. He looked like he wanted to scream at me to stay away. The External Affairs Hall is the lifeblood of our sect's resources and the training ground for our disciples. I shouted, questioning him directly. But what have your people done? They use their positions to collect bribes. If a disciple pays up, they get easy tasks. If they don't, they get sent on suicide missions. You've caused unnecessary deaths just to line your pockets. As the head, the blood is on your hands. I produced a third jade slip. After the ancestor read it, his face went completely black with rage. Elder Li Tai took one look at the evidence and looked like he was about to faint. Next, I looked at Elder Han Yun of the Hall of Transmission. He was a powerful golden core cultivator, but being stared down by a level 3 Qi refinement weakling like me actually made him break into a sweat. His face was already white before I even spoke. Elder Han Yun, I said slowly. The Hall of Transmission is the foundation of the Qing Yun sect. Teaching the next generation is everything. 20 years ago, we suffered a great loss. We needed you to step up and rebuild our strength. But what have you actually done? Han Yun stammered, his power failing him. I haven't done anything wrong. Exactly, I snapped, my eyes narrowing. You haven't done anything at all. In 20 years, how many foundation establishment cultivators have we gained? How much has the average disciple's strength improved? How many new talents have you discovered? The Hall of Transmission has become nothing but a place for low-level managers to embezzle money. You are a failure as an elder. I handed over the fourth slip. The ancestor's expression turned from anger to a deep, dark gloom. Han Yun stared at the evidence, shocked by how rotten his own department had become. Finally, I turned to Elder Yi Luo. He didn't even wait for me to speak. He just closed his eyes and slumped, giving up entirely. He had seen the fate of the other four and knew I had a gift for him too. Elder Yi Luo, you run the miscellaneous hall, I said. I doubt you've checked on it in years. That hall manages our pills, talismans, and spirit tools. It's our entire economy. For 20 years, it has been in a steady decline under your watch. If you can't manage a few workshops, how can you manage a sect? I presented the final jade slip. As the ancestor read it, he looked incredibly lonely. He hadn't realized that in just 2 decades, his sect had rotted to the core. Yi Luo had nothing to say. I had systematically dismantled all 5 candidates. I had the facts, the evidence, and the momentum. But I wasn't finished. I had finished the single-target attacks. Now it was time for the finishing blow to ensure none of them ever touched the throne. I had to go all the way. If I didn't become the sect leader today, these 5 would kill me tomorrow. I took a deep breath. I let my gaze turn sharp, stepping into the role of a leader reprimanding his subordinates. I knew this feeling well. I'd been chewed out by enough bosses in my past life to know the tone. 20 years. I shouted at the 5 Golden Core elders. What have you 5 been doing? What have you contributed to the sect or the disciples? You spent all your energy on internal infighting. You fought for power and profit while the sect withered away. Ask yourselves, what right do you have to be the leader? Even if the ancestor chose one of you today, do you have the ability to lead us back to the top? I paused, letting the silence hang. No, you don't. Your eyes are only on the seat. You think being the sect leader means enjoying the sect's resources for yourselves. You don't care about Qing Yun. You only care about your own greed. The 5 elders were shaking with fury. If looks could kill, I would have been turned into ash 100 times over. Even a weak man has his limits, and being lectured by a level 3 ant like me was pushing them over the edge. We are elders. Jinju barked back, his eyes flashing. We care for the sect. We would have worked to make it stronger. Exactly, Qin Shu added, his voice trembling with rage. Even if we made mistakes in the past, how can you claim we wouldn't be good leaders once we took charge? Elder Li Tai stepped forward, his face twisted in a sneer. Humph, you talk big for a nobody. So you're saying we're unfit to be leaders? Han Yun sneered, stepping closer. And you think a level 3 Qi refinement ant like yourself is better? We are Golden Core cultivators. If we can't lead, a bottom feeder like you certainly can't. Yi Luo joined in, his face twisted with contempt as he looked at me. Even if we step aside, you don't have the qualifications. If word got out that a weakling took the throne, the entire Qingyun sect would become the laughingstock of the cultivation world. Ancestor Qing Xin frowned, his eyes darting between me and the elders. I could tell he was realizing just how deep the rot went. Finding a successor was turning into a nightmare for him. I looked at the 5 fuming elders and let out a short, mocking laugh. Just because you can't do it doesn't mean I can't. As for people laughing, let them. Once I lead Qing Yun to power, we'll beat anyone who mocks us until they can't speak. If one beating doesn't work, we'll give them another. I straightened my back, looking them in the eye. Cultivation level and leadership are 2 different things. Does a sect need its leader to do all the fighting? Even if I were a commoner with 0 power, I could still make this sect flourish. The room went silent. Ancestor Qing Xian looked at me with newfound interest. He'd clearly never met anyone who spoke like this. I was a curiosity to him now. Elder Jin Zhu broke the silence with a harsh bark of laughter. You say you're capable? Prove it. I smiled. This was the moment. Fine. Let me ask you 5 a question. What do you think of our sect's location? Does it have potential? How should we grow? What are the obstacles? And how do we fix them? The elders went quiet, exchanging blank looks. Even the ancestor leaned in, wondering where I was going with this. They knew the geography, but they had never thought about it strategically. Elder Jinju, I said, singling him out. Why don't you share your expert opinion? What's there to say? Jinju snapped. To our west is the 10,000 demon forest, filled with beasts eyeing us like prey. To the north is the endless ice field, a frozen wasteland where ice demons roam. It's a dead end. We can't expand that way. He gestured wildly. To the south is the endless sea, crawling with sea demons. To the east, the storm mountains, cutting us off from the other provinces. We're trapped in the demon chaos county with the Black Wind Gang and Evil Spirit Valley breathing down our necks. There's no room to grow. It's a cursed land. So you think this place is a death trap with no future? I asked, my voice dripping with feigned curiosity. Of course it is. Why do you think we're the ones stuck here? Jinju shouted. I turned to the others. Do you all agree? It's obvious, Chinchu grunted. Any fool can see that. Li Tai sneered. We only chose this place because we had no other choice. Yi Luo glared at me. Since you're asking, I assume you have a different brilliant opinion? I'd love to hear it. I let a confident grin spread across my face. To me, this isn't a cursed land. It's a God-given treasure trove. Nonsense, Jinju shouted. The other elders scoffed, and even the ancestor looked skeptical. You don't understand the concept of crisis, I continued, pacing the floor. A crisis is just a danger wrapped around an opportunity. Yes, the forest is dangerous, but it's packed with demon cores and rare materials. No one dares to go deep, which means it's overflowing with spirit herbs and untouched mines. I pointed north. The ice field. More rare materials. The sea. Endless resources. We are surrounded by 3 massive storehouses of wealth that can also serve as the perfect training ground for our disciples. As for the Black Wind Gang and Evil Spirit Valley, they only have 1 nascent soul cultivator each. Once we're strong enough, we wipe them out and take the whole county for ourselves. How is this not a land of opportunity? You're dreaming, Jinju yelled. You think the demons in the forest are just going to stand there and let you kill them? Do you even know what that place is? It's the most dangerous forbidden zone on the continent. I looked around the room. You're all afraid because in the forest and the ice fields, your divine sense is useless. You can't detect anything, and the demons can hide perfectly. You walk in blind and die. Isn't that right? Everyone knows that. Jinju shot back. Even a golden core cultivator like me is dead meat if I wander in too deep. I shook my head slowly. That's where you're wrong. The environment hides the demons, yes. But what if our disciples could see them anyway? If we could detect them before they saw us, the danger vanishes. It becomes a playground. I knew exactly what I was doing. Divine sense might fail, but technology wouldn't. I had spent the last 3 days researching how to build a radar using the materials in this world. It was entirely possible. Talk is cheap, Yi Luo sneered. Can you actually make the divine sense work in there? I can do better, I said, my voice cold and steady. I am creating a treasure that replaces divine sense and negates the dangers of the forbidden zones. This is why you aren't fit to be leaders. When a leader sees a problem, he shouldn't run. He should solve it. I looked at them, the silence in the room heavy with shock. I will build it, and then I will take the sect to the top. Ancestor Qing Xian looked at me with deep skepticism. I was just a level 3 Qi refinement cultivator. To him, I was barely more than a bug. The idea that I could solve the problem of divine sense being blocked in the forbidden zones seemed impossible. You? He asked, his voice echoing. How could you possibly achieve this? I can't, I said, meeting his gaze. But I need time and the full support of the sect. Qing Xian leaned forward, his eyes searching mine. If I give you a chance, how long will it take? And how exactly do you plan to do it? I felt a surge of excitement. This was the opening I needed. I didn't hesitate. If you give me this chance, Ancestor, I have the confidence to solve it within 1 year. 1 year? To a golden core elder or an ancestor, that was just a blink of an eye. 1 year is short, Qing Xian said slowly, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. I don't mind giving you a chance to prove yourself. But tell me, what kind of support do you need? I took a deep breath. My heart was pounding, but my voice stayed firm. I need absolute authority. I need to be second only to you. And I need full access to all sect resources. The room exploded. The 5 Golden Core elders looked like they were about to have a stroke. No, absolutely not. Jinju screamed, jumping to his feet. You're a level 3 trash disciple. How dare you even dream of having that much power? Giving that much control to a minor cultivator is a death sentence for the sect. Qin added, his face red with fury. Ancestor, please, do not listen to this boy's nonsense. This is a grave matter. Li Tai, Han Yun, and Yi Luo all joined in, their voices overlapping in a desperate attempt to shut me down. They knew exactly what this meant. If I had absolute authority, even they would have to take orders from me. They couldn't stomach the thought. Qin Xin frowned. I could tell he had already given up on these 5 as candidates for the leadership, but making me the leader was a massive risk. It was unheard of. Still, I had spoken with logic and vision. He was considering it. I decided to push harder. Ancestor, if I am to be the leader, I must reform the Qin Yun sect. I will be stepping on a lot of toes. Without your absolute backing, the reform will fail before it starts. I need to wake this sect up. I need to make it new again. Reform. Qin Xian's interest was piqued. He knew the sect was rotting. Tell me more. What kind of reforms? The 5 elders glared at me, their eyes full of murder, but they couldn't move while the ancestor was watching. First, I announced, my voice ringing through the hall. We redefined the sect rules. I have 10 new laws. 1. Betray the sect, and you die. 2. Betray the human race, and you die. 3. Harm your fellow disciples, and you will face soul-refining torture or death. 4. Harm innocent civilians, and you face the same. I went on, listing rules against rape, looting, bullying the weak, and embezzling sect assets. And finally, 10. Anyone who deserts their comrades on the battlefield will be executed. These 10 rules will be carved into a stone monument in the center of the plaza. From the highest elder to the lowest disciple, everyone follows them. Jinju let out a cold snort. Killing and stealing is the way of the cultivation world. It's survival of the fittest. Why should we punish it? I looked at him with pure disdain. That might be how others do it, but not the Qin Yun sect. I want our people to have a sense of justice. We need unity. If everyone is busy looking for a chance to rob their brother, how can we ever stand together? A stable environment is the only way to grow. I glanced at Qin Xian. He was smiling. There was a glimmer of genuine admiration in his eyes. I breathed a small sigh of relief. He was a traditional, righteous man at heart. These rules were winning him over. Is there more? Qin Xian asked. Yes, I said. Next, I am abolishing the monthly stipend. No more free spirit stones. No more free pills. What? Jinju gasped, his face turning pale. The other elders looked like they wanted to skin me alive. I had just aimed a sword at their wallets. That's right, I continued, ignoring their outrage. The entire ranking system is changing. From now on, there are no inner disciples, outer disciples, or laborers. Everyone is equal. If you want resources, you work for them. No more sitting around and getting fed by the sect. The Qin Yun sect was like a failing state-owned enterprise. It had no vitality. I needed to break the iron rice bowl system. I will build 3 battle towers, I explained. 1 for chi refinement, 1 for foundation establishment, and 1 for golden core. Each tower will have 100 floors of illusions. You clear a floor, you get points. The stronger you are, the more points you earn. We will rank everyone. The top performers get bonuses and sect support. If you want resources, you fight for them. Or, you go out, find resources, and trade them for points. Innocent nonsense. Jinju scoffed. Treating geniuses the same as common trash? I've never heard of such a thing. No sect operates like this. I completely disagree with your logic, Sun E. Qin Chu sneered, his voice dripping with venom. You're acting reckless. If you treat everyone the same, what happens when the talented disciples leave for better sects? I looked him dead in the eye. Leave? Where exactly are they going to go? I didn't wait for his answer. In this entire district, there are only 3 major sections. Aside from us, the other 2 are demonic sects. Do you really think our geniuses are brave enough to join the devils? If they want to walk away, let them. They'll regret it soon enough. We don't need to beg people to stay who have no loyalty. I turned back to the crowd, my voice steady. The old way of separating the gifted from the trash has its merits, but it's flawed. Talent just means you're faster or more efficient with resources. It doesn't guarantee you're stronger in a real fight. And it certainly doesn't mean you're loyal. This world is full of average cultivators who have slaughtered geniuses in battle. I paused for effect. Most cultivators in the world have average talent. My reform doesn't play favorites. It just gives everyone a fair shot. If you're a dragon, you'll soar. If you're a worm, you'll crawl. As for the talented ones, if they actually work hard, they'll earn even more resources than the crumbs the sect currently feeds them. Competition breeds excellence. If a genius loses to a commoner, that's on them. Ancestor Qing Xian nodded slowly. I could see the light of approval in his eyes. He liked what he was hearing. I felt a surge of confidence. Time to keep the momentum going. Next, I said, we are digitizing everything. Every resource, spirit stones, pills, cultivation rooms, even private lessons from elders, will be assigned a point value. This will make trading easier. And more importantly, it allows us to start a lending business. A lending business? The elders looked confused. It's the most effective way to drive growth, I explained. We lend points to disciples so they can buy the resources they need to break through to the next level immediately. Once they are stronger, their ability to earn points increases. They pay us back with interest later. The sect makes a profit, and the disciples get stronger faster. It's a win-win. Qing Xian's eyes lit up. Even the 5 elders looked stunned. They weren't idiots. They could see the massive potential for wealth. Finally, I continued, I am firing the entire management team. The room went silent. The elders' faces turned black. I will appoint new managers based on competence, not seniority or background. They will receive a base salary and points. If they do a great job, they get promoted. If they do nothing, they stay where they are. But if they fail their duties, they're fired. The rule is simple. The capable rise, the useless fall. Jinju looked like he was about to have a stroke. First, I took their money. Now, I was stripping away their power. They were vibrating with rage, but Qing Xian was smiling. Interesting, the ancestor whispered. I like this. I suppressed a grin. In my head, I was laughing. It was just basic corporate management and performance reviews, but to these ancient cultivators, I sounded like a god-tier strategist. My seat as sect leader was practically guaranteed. Is there more? Qing Xian asked, leaning forward. Of course, I said, stepping into my full performance. I plan to open the library of scriptures to everyone. Every manual, every technique, free for all disciples to read. Qing Xian froze. To everyone? Without charging points. Yes, ancestor. If we want the sect to grow, we can't treat our own knowledge like a commodity to be sold to our own people. We need our disciples to be versatile and well-read. How can we expect them to be the best if we hide the best tools from them? Of course, the top-tier secret techniques will only have the first half public. To get the rest, they must pass a loyalty and skill test. Qing Xian nodded. That is reasonable. One last thing, I added. We need to innovate. The reason our miscellaneous hall is failing is because we have no competitive edge. Our pills are the same as the ones from the 7-star pavilion, but they have a bigger brand and lower costs. Why would anyone buy from us? Brand. Qing Xian looked puzzled. It means reputation, I explained. If 2 shops sell the same qi gathering pill for the same price, people buy from the famous shop. To beat them, we need unique products. We need to encourage our disciples to invent new things, pills that extend life, or medicines that guarantee a breakthrough. We don't just need to follow the old ways. We need to lead the new ones. In short, we need our own core technology, I said, my voice echoing through the hall. Beyond pills, we must innovate with spiritual energy and talisman design. If the miscellaneous hall is to survive, we need products that only the Qing Yun sect can provide. I looked at the crowd, laying out my vision. I explained that I would implement a ranking system for the hall's members. Higher ranks would mean better rewards. I even wanted to incentivize the creation of new techniques and secret arts. If a disciple invented something new, I'd shower them with rewards. Ancestor Qing Xian leaned back, a small smile playing on his lips. He looked genuinely intrigued. Humph, just a bunch of flowery words to please the crowd. Elder Jinju grunted. He couldn't help himself. I turned to him, wearing a calm smile. Elder Jinju, what do you think is the most important factor for a sect's development? Talented cultivators, obviously. He snapped back without hesitation. The more geniuses we recruit, the stronger we become. I raised my right hand and wagged my index finger at him. Wrong. Completely wrong. The hall went silent. For a sect, the most important thing is resources, I continued. In other words, wealth. Spiritual stones. To the common folk, it's just money. Everything in our treasury is our financial power. Imagine if that wealth increased tenfold, 100-fold, 10,000-fold. What would happen then? I paused, letting the thought sink in. With those resources, you 5 Golden Core Elders could push for the nascent soul stage whenever you wanted. And with enough wealth, what kind of talented disciple couldn't we attract? The eyes of the 5 Elders lit up instantly. The lure of the nascent soul stage was their greatest weakness. But the light faded quickly as reality set in. They thought I was just painting a pretty picture. Our current resources are limited, and they're being drained every day. We must open new paths of revenue. My plan to fix the sect in 1 year is focused on creating a massive stream of wealth. But I can't do it alone. The miscellaneous hall must work together. Talk is cheap, Elder Han Yun said coldly. Getting resources isn't as easy as you make it sound. I shrugged. Of course it isn't easy. But we don't stop just because it's hard. I will soon develop a detection radar. If this tool can replace divine sense in the forbidden zones, we can harvest resources safely. The elders and Qing Xian practically ignored that last part. A level 3 Qi refinement kid making a treasure that could rival a high-level cultivator's divine sense? They thought I was dreaming. Once the internal reforms are done, I moved on. I need the elders to lead teams to clear the chaotic demon county. We will unify the entire region. Every human city will have Qing Yun disciples stationed there as protectors. I explained that our disciples would help the commoners with droughts, floods, and irrigation. I wanted to build a plaza in the center of every city with a monument engraved with the first half of our sect's cultivation techniques. Our disciples would hold regular lectures for the common people. What? Elder Yi Luo shouted, his eyes wide with disbelief. You want us, immortal cultivators, to guard lowly mortals? And you think unifying the county is easy? Do you think the Black Wind Stronghold and the Evil Spirit Valley are just decorations? The others looked just as shocked. Even Qing Xian looked confused. I sighed inwardly. This was the problem with the cultivation world. These people saw themselves as gods and mortals as ants. They didn't think the ants were worth their time. I fixed my gaze on Elder Yi Luo. Lowly mortals? I think you've forgotten that you were a mortal once, too. What right do you have to look down on them? I am different. Yi Luo barked, his face red. I come from a cultivation clan. And where did your clan come from? I shot back. Didn't it start with a mortal? A cultivator must never forget their roots. Mortals are the foundation of every sect. By protecting them and teaching them, we build an unshakable base for the Qing Yun sect. I told them that when we eventually recruited from these cities, the disciples would be loyal. They would love the sect because we protected their homes and their families. I checked the records, I said firmly. Over the last century, we've recruited geniuses who were either lured away by higher bids or deserted us during wars. What use is talent without loyalty? It's a waste of resources. From now on, I prioritize loyalty and determination over raw talent. I won't spend years raising ungrateful wolves. I turned my gaze toward the ancestor. Time for the finishing blow. I heard that when the ancestor was a young genius, many sects tried to bribe him away. But the ancestor is a man of high character. He stayed loyal to Qing Yun through every hardship because he truly identifies as a member of this family. We need more people like him. If all our disciples were as noble as the ancestor, how could we not prosper? Qing Xian's face glowed. He looked like he was floating on air. My blatant flattery was working perfectly. I peeked at him, wondering if he'd finally give me the seat. He caught my look, but didn't get angry. Instead, he stood up, his aura surging. Well said, he boomed. I almost forgot. When I was a mortal, my home was flooded. My family was in despair until my master passed by and saved them. That is why I never left. This sect is my home. He looked at me with genuine approval. Son E, Your decision to protect the mortals is excellent. I support it. Since you have the vision and the heart, I'll give you this chance." He scanned the room, his voice dropping an octave. "You are the new sect leader. You have 1 year. If you don't meet my expectations, I will personally kick you off that throne. But tell me, unifying the county won't be easy. The Black Wind Stronghold and Evil Spirit Valley are just as strong as us. How do you plan to handle them?" I was ecstatic. My heart pounded against my ribs as I realized I'd actually done it. "Don't worry, Ancestor," I said, bowing deeply. "I have a plan. Protecting the mortal cities and building our foundation comes next, but first, we have to deal with the Black Wind Stronghold and Evil Spirit Valley." My position as sect leader was finally secure. Small goal achieved. By clinging to the thigh of an powerhouse like Ancestor Qing Xian, who in the Qingyun sect would dare to touch me now? But then I looked at the 5 Golden Core Elders. Their faces were dark, their eyes simmering with murderous intent. I felt a chill run down my spine. If I didn't get these 5 on my side, not only would my work be impossible, but my life wouldn't be worth a copper coin the moment I left this hall. I'd hit them with the stick. Now, it was time to give them the carrot. In the world of cultivation, there are no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. If the price was right, even a man who killed your father could become a business partner. I had spent every ounce of my mental energy to win this seat. I wasn't going to let some bitter old men assassinate me on my first day. I already had a plan to buy their loyalty. "Thank you, Ancestor, for fulfilling my wish," I said, cupping my hands again. "I won't let you down." Qing Xian nodded, looking genuinely pleased with me. "Good. I hope you're a man of your word. You can be the leader, but I'm going to place a restriction seal inside your body. If you play tricks, the consequences will be unpleasant." "Please, go ahead," I replied without hesitation. To a weakling like me, having a seal changed nothing. If he wanted me dead, he could sneeze and I'd turn to dust. If anything, the seal would make them trust me more. It proved I was under their control. Qing Xian flicked his wrist. A streak of forbidden energy shot into my chest, settling deep in my dantian. He looked at me calmly. "Now, what is your first move?" I smiled, acting as if the lethal bomb in my gut didn't exist. "First, I'd like to have a heart-to-heart with the 5 elders." The Ancestor blinked in surprise. The 5 elders let out synchronized cold snorts. Their glares said it all. The only thing in their hearts was a desire to skin me alive. They were likely already planning how to make my life a living hell despite the Ancestor's protection. I looked them in the eye, my voice calm. "I imagine you all want to tear me into 10,000 pieces right about now. At least you're self-aware," Elder Jinju spat. "Just wait until we get you alone." I ignored the threat. "Let me ask you one thing. With your current cultivation and the sect's current resources, what are the odds of any of you reaching the nascent soul stage?" That silenced them instantly. They were all stuck in the mid-golden core stage. They looked close to the breakthrough, but in reality, they were worlds away. Without a massive stroke of luck or a mountain of top-tier resources, they would die of old age before ever seeing a nascent soul. That was exactly why they wanted the sect leader position, to hoard resources for themselves. "Even if one of you took this seat today," I continued, "your chances of breaking through would still be pathetic." "And you think you're different?" Jinju asked with a sneer. "Are you saying you can get us there?" I stood tall, my face full of unearned arrogance. "Exactly. If you support me and follow my lead, I guarantee you will all have a real shot at the nascent soul stage." "Huh? With what?" Elder Qin mocked. "You're a level 3 Qi refinement nobody. You think you can produce nascent soul resources out of thin air?" Even the Ancestor looked skeptical. But I didn't flinch. "Give me 1 year," I declared. "In 1 year, I will transform the Qingyun sect. I will skyrocket our wealth and bring in more resources than you've seen in the last 20 years combined. If I fail, you can do whatever you want with me. You can pick a new leader then. 1 year is a blink of an eye to cultivators like you. If I fail, you lose nothing. If I succeed, you gain everything. Why not take the bet?" The elders exchanged looks. Their expressions shifted from fury to calculation. 1 year was nothing. It was a tiny price to pay for a potential breakthrough. Before they could argue, Ancestor Qing Xian spoke up. "What are you afraid of? It's just 1 year. Can't you wait that long?" Elder Jinju was the first to cave. He bowed to the ancestor. I am willing to give him a chance. I'll give him a year, Qinshu added. I'll bet on him too, said Li Tai. Han Yun and Yi Luo followed suit. They were curious to see if this brat was actually a genius or just a loudmouthed suicide candidate. Done. I felt a surge of triumph. I had neutralized the threats. With the ancestor and the 5 strongest elders behind me, the rest of the sect would fall in line. Thank you for your trust, I said. Now let's talk business. Ancestor, I need you to oversee the creation of the battle tower. I've written down some specific requirements. I handed him a jade slip. He scanned it, his brows furrowing. These requirements are high. You want live scoring and hyper-realistic illusions. It won't be easy or cheap. Can you do it? I asked. I can, he said. We can repurpose the old trial grounds. Give me 2 months. Perfect. Now, Elder Jinju, I said, turning to the man who wanted to kill me 5 minutes ago. I want you to stay in charge of the Hall of Justice. The elders looked stunned. Jinju stared at me, confused. I thought you were replacing us. I shook my head and smiled. The Hall of Justice is the heart of the sect. It needs a prestigious, powerful elder. You fit the bill. But from now on, you follow my rules. No more bribes. No more looking the other way. Every disciple who broke the law under your watch must be punished. Can you guarantee that? Jinju hesitated, thinking of his disciples, but then he remembered the promise of the nascent soul stage. He nodded firmly. I give you my word. The Hall of Justice will be clean. I told Elder Jinju to relax. As for the disciples under his wing who had broken the law, I promised their punishments would be lightened this time, a small mercy to keep him on my side. Then, I turned my gaze toward Elder Qinshu. Elder Qin, I'm going to need you to stay on and lead the Internal Affairs Hall. I need your full cooperation to digitize and track the sect's resources and contribution points. In this entire sect, no one knows our assets better than you. I can't think of anyone else who could help me pull this off. Qinshu stroked his sparse beard, looking surprised. He clearly hadn't expected to be called indispensable. A look of warmth replaced his previous hostility. Fine, he said, nodding. I will give you my full support. Next, I looked at Elder Li Tai and Elder Han Yun. The upcoming unification of the Luanyao region is vital to the future of the Qing Yun sect. I need both of you to handle the preparations. If we succeed, your names will be recorded in our history books as the great heroes who sparked our sect's rise. I added that this wasn't an immediate task. We had to deal with the Black Wind Fortress and the Evil Spirit Valley first. When they heard about achieving eternal fame, their faces lit up. The resentment they felt toward me started to evaporate. They were so blinded by the promise of glory that they didn't even question how a level 3 cultivator planned to wipe out 2 major enemy strongholds. Finally, I looked at Elder Yi Luo. He was practically vibrating with anticipation. I gave him a wide smile. Elder Yi, you will continue to manage the miscellaneous hall. But from now on, that hall will be the sect's treasury. You'll be our god of wealth. Your first task is to create new identity tokens for every member. I have specific requirements right here. I handed him a jade slip. Being called the god of wealth was all the ego-stroking Yi Luo needed. He puffed out his chest. Don't you worry. For this next year, I'll back you 100%. You do whatever you need to do. I scanned their faces. A few minutes ago, they wanted to skin me alive. Now, they were glowing with pride and purpose. I realized then that the cultivation world wasn't just about power. It was about managing people and their egos. There were no permanent enemies, only shared interests. I had handled the big shots, but I wasn't out of the woods yet. I needed to build a detection radar system as soon as possible, and more importantly, I needed to increase my own strength and knowledge. I couldn't stay a weakling forever. I bowed to Ancestor Qingxian. Ancestor, that's all for now. Please, summon every member of the sect. It's time to begin the reforms. Down in the sect, the atmosphere was electric. Word had spread that a decision was being made in the Great Hall. The disciples of the 5 Golden Core Elders were particularly nervous. They knew that if their master became the sect leader, they'd be set for life. Suddenly, a booming voice echoed through the air, reaching every ear in the mountains. All disciples of the Qing Yun sect, inner, outer, and miscellaneous, gather at the central square within 30 minutes. The sect erupted into chaos. Streaks of light filled the sky as disciples took flight. Those who couldn't fly, the thousands of miscellaneous laborers, had to sprint on foot. They were confused. Usually, the sect ignored them. Even during past leadership changes, they were never invited. This was a first. Over at Qingmu Peak, my friend Erguzi was panicking. He ran around looking for me, shouting my name, but I was nowhere to be found. He stomped his foot in frustration. That idiot. Where is he slacking off now? Forget it. He's just a laborer. Maybe they won't notice if he's missing. He gave up and headed to the square alone. The central square was packed. At the very front, near the stage, stood the 500 inner disciples. They looked down their noses at the 1,200 outer disciples standing behind them. At the very back stood the massive crowd of 2,300 miscellaneous disciples, looking ragged and full of envy. In total, the sect had dwindled to about 4,000 disciples and 200 staff. The air was thick with gossip. Everyone was betting on who the new leader would be. Some argued for Jinju because of his seniority. Others insisted on Qinshu or Li Tai. The arguments got so heated that some disciples almost started brawling right there in the square. Erguzi scanned the crowd of laborers, still hoping to see me, but I was gone. He sighed, praying I wouldn't get punished for skipping out. Then, the bells tolled. The square went silent. All eyes turned toward the great hall. Ancestor Qing Xian and the 5 golden core elders descended from the sky in a flash of light. But standing right there in the middle of them, looking calm and confident, was me. It was my first time flying, and honestly, it was terrifying but incredible. We landed on the high platform. The collective aura of the elders put a crushing pressure on the crowd. No one dared to breathe. Way in the back, Erguzi's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He rubbed his eyes, thinking he was hallucinating. He even slapped himself across the face. But when he looked back up, I was still there, standing among the gods of the sect. He couldn't believe it. I wasn't hiding. I was leading. I stood right next to Ancestor Qing Xian, looking down at the sea of faces. I could see Erguzi in the back, his mouth hanging open. I knew exactly what he was thinking. He was wondering what the hell I was doing up there. He probably suspected I was actually running for sect leader, but his brain refused to accept something so impossible. It wasn't just him. Every single disciple in the square was staring at me. The inner and outer disciples didn't recognize me at all. A few of the miscellaneous disciples did, but they looked like they had seen a ghost. I scanned the crowd. These were the survivors of the Qin Yun sect. There were fewer people here than at my old university back on Earth. Their uniforms were a mess, and they looked defeated. They lacked spirit. I made a mental note. That had to change. Beside me, Ancestor Qing Xian was silent, his heart heavy. He remembered when this sect had over 100,000 disciples. Now, there were barely 4,000. Without him, this place wouldn't even rank as a top-tier sect anymore. Aside from him, there were only 5 golden core elders left. If he died or failed his cultivation, the sect would collapse. We were currently in the chaotic Demon County. I had told him it was a land of hidden treasures, but he was still worried. Like the elders, he thought this place was a death trap that could swallow the sect whole. He had grown up here. This sect was his home. He didn't want to see it rot, but he didn't know how to fix it. That was why, after hearing my plan, he decided to gamble on me. He wanted a miracle. The ancestor took a deep breath. His voice boomed across the square like thunder. I am Qing Xian. Today, I officially announce that Sun Yi is the new sect leader of the Qin Yun sect. The crowd froze. From this moment on, he continued, everyone, including the Golden Core elders, must follow his orders. Anyone who chooses to disobey will be punished according to the new sect rules. No exceptions. The square went deathly silent. Everyone was stunned. This wasn't the result they expected. It wasn't even close. Down in the back, Erguzi's mind went completely blank. He looked like he forgot how to breathe. Then, the elders stepped forward. Elder Jinju was the first to speak. I fully support the sect leader's reforms, he shouted. Whoever dares to disobey will answer to the sect rules. Next was Qin Chu. He glared at the disciples. From now on, the sect leader holds supreme authority. Even I must follow his arrangements. Disobey at your own peril. Li Tai stepped up, representing the External Affairs Hall. I support the sect leader. If anyone disrespects him, I won't let it slide. Han Yun from the transmission hall followed suit. The sect leader's orders apply to me as well. If you think you can break them, think about the consequences. Finally, Yi Luo of the miscellaneous hall roared. All laborers listen up. You will follow the sect leader's commands. Any disobedience will be dealt with harshly. With the ancestors' appointment and the public backing of the 5 elders, my position was officially unshakable. But the disciples were still whispering. They had no idea who I was. Some wondered if I was a hidden master. Others guessed I must have secretly defeated the 5 elders to earn their respect. They assumed I was some powerful elder who had been in seclusion for decades. The miscellaneous disciples who actually knew me had very different expressions. My creditors were currently debating whether they should just forget the money I owed them. Meanwhile, Manager Wong, my direct supervisor who used to exploit me daily, looked like he was about to faint. His face was paper white, and he was shaking. Ancestor Qing Xian waved his hand, and a massive pressure descended, silencing the gossip instantly. Now, the new sect leader will address you. I stepped forward with a calm smile. I felt like I was back in university, giving a speech as a student representative. Hello, everyone. My name is Sun Yi, and I am your new sect leader, I said. Most of you don't know me, and when I tell you who I am, you're going to be surprised. I paused for effect. I am, or was, a simple miscellaneous disciple. My cultivation is only level 3 Qi refinement. Most of you are stronger than me. The square exploded. People were screaming and gasping. They couldn't wrap their heads around it. A level 3 laborer? Leading the sect? I let the noise die down before I continued. Don't be surprised, and don't be jealous. Many people want this position for the power, but how many are willing to stake their lives on the sect's survival? This position isn't just power, it's a burden. I leaned in, my voice sharp. I have promised the ancestor and the elders that I will make this sect powerful within 1 year. If I fail, I will pay with my life. Would any of you dare to make that promise? The silence returned, but this time it was heavy with respect. No one there was crazy enough to bet their life on a 1-year deadline. Therefore, I said, I am beginning a total reform of the sect. Do not test my patience. If you think you're stronger than the ancestor or the elders, feel free to try me. But first, we are changing the rules. I turned to the ancestor and bowed. Ancestor, please carve the new laws. The ancestor's aura flared. He reached out toward the empty air on the right side of the square. A massive hand of golden energy formed, grabbing a giant boulder from the mountainside. He crushed the jagged edges with a single squeeze, then flattened the stone into a massive monument, 30 feet high and 10 feet wide. The new era of the Qingyun sect had begun. Sun Yi watched the scene with his eyes wide, his face a mask of pure disbelief. I could see the envy burning in his heart as he witnessed the ancestors' overwhelming power. He was completely mesmerized. He started thinking about the future and what his life would look like from now on. He knew that the old, corrupt ways were finally over. A new path was opening up for disciples like him, and for the first time, he saw a glimmer of hope.